If you're facing these three struggles, you might be a rare dark chosen one. Let's begin with a truth that most people never dare to say aloud. Not all chosen ones walk in the light. Some are forged in shadow. And if you're watching this right now, feeling like your life has been nothing but a series of trials, betrayals, and unexplainable suffering, then I need you to listen very closely. You might be what I call a dark chosen one. Not dark as in evil, but dark as in hidden, unseen, rarely understood. A being whose soul carries the weight of ancient battles, karmic burdens, or divine assignments too heavy for most to bear. Your path is not ordinary, and neither is your pain. The first sign: suffering that makes no sense. You've probably asked yourself a million times, why me? You weren't just bullied, you were crucified socially. You didn't just experience heartbreak, you were shattered to the core. You weren't just ignored, you were forgotten, like you were invisible in a world that only sees the surface. And deep inside, you've always felt this eerie sense that your suffering wasn't random, that maybe, just maybe, it was preparing you for something colossal. Do you ever wonder why your life has been more chaotic than those around you? Why you seem to face storms even when you're doing everything right? That's not bad luck. That's a signature, a spiritual fingerprint. The universe marks its rarest souls with fire, not to destroy them, but to refine them.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Let me tell you something I've learned from walking across deserts of doubt, from meditating in silence for weeks, from losing everything and returning with nothing but wisdom. Pain is an initiation, but not all are called to it. There are some people who will never experience the kind of psychological breakdowns you've survived. They'll never hear the silence of true isolation or face the mirror of their own soul. But you have, and that's why you're not ordinary. You are being initiated into something that logic cannot explain, and you are not crazy. You are awakening. The second sign: being misunderstood, even hated for being yourself. Have you ever noticed that you trigger people just by existing? You walk into a room and suddenly people get defensive, uncomfortable, or even aggressive. You speak your truth and suddenly you're too intense, too much, too deep. But inside you're just being honest. Why does your authenticity threaten people? Why do your eyes seem to see through masks, through lies, through illusion? Here's the truth most won't admit. You're not just seeing the world, you're piercing it. You were born with spiritual sight. And that makes people uncomfortable, because your presence forces them to confront things they buried deep. And that's why you've been rejected. Not because you're wrong, but because you're real in a world addicted to fake. I want to ask you something deep. When was the first time you realized you couldn't fit in, no matter how hard you tried? Not because you were broken, but because you were built for something different, something bigger, something sacred. Can you remember it? That moment when the world told you you're too different, but your soul whispered, "You're ancient." That moment was not a curse, it was a calling, a divine echo from the future pulling you toward your true path. And that path is not found in popularity or in conformity or in shallow pleasures. That path is found in depth, in solitude, in silence, in the sacred. Let me tell you a secret the ancients knew. The rarest souls are hidden in plain sight. They are disguised as outcasts, misfits, rebels, and black sheep, because if the world knew who you really were, it would try to either control you or destroy you before your time. So the universe cloaks you in struggle, in confusion, in pain, until you are ready to rise, not as a savior, but as a storm. The third sign: your inner world is more vivid, more intense, more alive than your outer world. You feel energies, you hear thoughts, you sense truth, you dream of symbols, of places you've never seen, of lives you never lived but somehow remember. You're not imagining things. Your soul is ancient. Your consciousness is multidimensional. You are not just surviving this life, you are remembering who you've always been. But here's the paradox: the more you awaken, the lonelier it gets. Because while others chase likes and trends, you're chasing truth. While others numb themselves with noise, you crave silence. While others fear death, you've already died 1,000 times in your own mind. Have you ever sat in silence so deep that you could hear your own soul weeping? Have you ever been surrounded by people but felt utterly alone, like a ghost walking in daylight? That's not depression, that's the price of awakening. You are shedding illusions, and with each layer you peel off, you lose another part of the world that once comforted you, but in exchange, you gain power. Not the kind of power that manipulates or controls, but the kind that liberates. The kind of power that can't be seen, but can be felt. The kind of power that breaks generational curses, heals ancestral wounds, and rewrites destiny. So, who are you really? Are you just a person who's been through a lot, or are you something more? Have you ever wondered why you've faced the exact traumas that broke others, but you're still here? Have you ever considered that your survival is not just resilience, but prophecy? That your story is not just a tragedy, but a sacred script that only you could carry? What if your life was never meant to be easy, but meaningful? What if every tear you cried was watering a tree whose fruits you haven't seen yet? Listen carefully. If you're facing unexplainable suffering, constant rejection, and a deep inner world that no one else seems to understand, you might be a dark chosen one. And that's not a title, it's a burden. But it's also a key to unlock a mission so divine, so ancient, so specific to your soul, that the universe had to prepare you through fire. Do not compare your life to others. Your path is not linear. It's labyrinthine. You don't ascend in straight lines. You spiral, you fall, you burn, and then you rise stronger than before, again and again. You are not cursed. You are coded. And the code within you is awakening, the silent war within. When pain becomes a portal to power, there's a war happening right now, but it's not out there in the world. It's inside you. It's a war no one sees. No one applauds. No one understands. It's the silent war. The one between who you were told to be and who you truly are. And if you're watching this, I know you felt it. That unbearable friction between your soul's calling and the limitations that this world keeps trying to attach to you. The expectations, the programming, the wounds, the voices that said, be quiet, be normal, be small. But something inside of you refused, something ancient, something wild, something sacred. That's not rebellion, that's remembrance. You are remembering that you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to awaken. The silent war begins the moment you start questioning everything. Why do I feel this way? Why do I see things others don't? Why does this world feel so fake, so disconnected, so loud but empty? And most people suppress those questions. They drown them in distractions, in relationships, in substances, in work. But you didn't. You couldn't, because your soul would not let you sleep. Do you know what kind of courage that takes? To face the void instead of running from it? To sit with your demons instead of escaping them? That's not weakness, that's spiritual strength. That's the mark of a dark chosen one. But here's the truth no one warns you about. Awakening hurts. It's not just light and bliss and peace. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's terror. Sometimes it's staring into the abyss of your own mind and realizing that everything you thought was real was just a projection. And when that illusion shatters, you're left naked, without identity, without validation, without a script to follow. That's what I call the great unraveling. But it's also the beginning of your real power, because in that space something magical happens. You meet yourself, not the mask, not the role, not the wounded ego, but the real you. The you that existed before the world told you who to be, the you that remembers, the you that was chosen. Ask yourself this: when did you start hiding your light to make others comfortable? When did you start dimming your truth just to be accepted? And who benefits from your silence? Who taught you that your emotions were too much, that your visions were delusions, that your depth was a flaw? Because they lied. They lied to keep you asleep. They lied to keep you small. But you're waking up now. And awakening is not a gentle process, it's a revolution of the soul. You see, the dark chosen one walks through inner chaos not because they are broken, but because they are being rebuilt from the inside out. Every anxiety attack, every depressive spiral, every existential crisis, it's not punishment, it's transformation. It's the soul shedding what no longer serves. It's the ego cracking open so that spirit can emerge. And yes, it's messy, yes, it's painful, but it's also sacred. Because every time you fall apart, a truer version of you is born from the ashes. Let me tell you something I witnessed in people like you. Your pain is not random. It's precise, it's intelligent, it's tailored for your evolution. You are being sculpted by suffering into someone who can hold divine power. But before you can hold that power, you must become hollow. You must be emptied of what is not you. That's why relationships fall apart. That's why careers collapse. That's why friendships fade. Not because you're failing, but because you're ascending, and not everyone can come with you. So, what do you do during this inner war? You stop fighting yourself. You stop calling your darkness a disease. You stop apologizing for your emotions. And you start listening. You start asking deeper questions like, what is this pain trying to teach me? What parts of me are being asked to die so I can be reborn? What am I afraid to feel and why? You begin to treat your inner world like a sacred temple, not a battlefield. And in that stillness, you begin to hear things you were too distracted to notice before. The whispers of your ancestors, the guidance of spirit, the blueprint of your soul's mission. You are not here to be normal, you are here to be divine. You are not here to avoid struggle, you are here to alchemize it. Every wound you carry is a portal, every scar is a sigil, every breakdown is a breakthrough in disguise. But you must stop running from yourself. You must stare into your own reflection until you see the God within. That's the real initiation. Not into religion, not into dogma, but into sovereignty, into soul mastery, into remembering that you are not just a human having a spiritual experience, you are a cosmic being navigating a human illusion. And the more you embrace that truth, the more the war within begins to shift. Not because the pain disappears, but because you stop fearing it. You start seeing it as a teacher, a companion, a compass, and eventually a power source. Because the paradox is this: the parts of you that hurt the most are the same parts that carry the most wisdom. The same shadows you try to hide are the ones that contain your gifts. And when you finally integrate them, when you stop rejecting them, you become whole. You become unstoppable. The sacred rage, turning your inner chaos into divine order. There's a kind of rage that no one talks about. Not the kind that explodes in violence or screams in anger, but the sacred kind. The rage that brews in silence, that simmers beneath years of being silenced, dismissed, abused, overlooked. It's the rage of the soul, the fury of being awake in a world that pretends to be asleep. And if you've ever felt that, like you are screaming inside while smiling on the outside, then know this: your rage is not something to fear, it's something to revere, because sacred rage is not about destruction, it's about revelation. It's the fire that burns illusions, the storm that clears the path, the thunder in your chest that says enough. Enough pretending, enough shrinking, enough betraying yourself to fit into a world that was never designed for your truth. This rage is divine. It's the voice of your spirit calling you back to your center. And the reason it feels chaotic is because it's trying to tear down everything that is aligned with your highest self. Most people are terrified of rage because they've only seen it misused. But what if I told you that rage, when harnessed, becomes a catalyst for purpose? What if that heat in your belly was a compass pointing to what matters most to your soul? You're not angry for no reason. You're angry because you see through the lies, you feel the injustice, you sense the manipulation, and your soul refuses to play along. That's not dysfunction, that's wisdom. That's the birth of transformation. But sacred rage must be channeled. Not suppressed, not unleashed recklessly, but alchemized. Are you willing to sit with your anger, not as an enemy, but as a mentor? Can you ask your rage, what are you trying to protect me from? What are you asking me to change? Where have I abandoned myself? Because behind that fire is clarity. Behind that fire is power. And once you truly listen, you'll realize that your rage isn't here to destroy you, it's here to awaken you. You see, the dark chosen one often carries this sacred rage because we were not allowed to be soft. We were not allowed to be vulnerable. We had to grow up fast, protect ourselves, become our own guardians. And over time, that unexpressed grief hardened into fury. But buried beneath that fury is the most tender, divine version of you, the real you, the one who still believes in love, the one who still dreams of peace, the one who hopes for healing, not just for yourself, but for the whole world. That's why your chaos matters, because when you learn to bring order to it, not by control, but by compassion, you become a force of nature, a living embodiment of transmutation. You show others what's possible when pain becomes power, when rage becomes fuel, when the storm becomes a sanctuary. You become a lighthouse for other wandering souls, showing them that it's okay to feel deeply, to fall apart, to rebuild. That it's okay to burn down the old to make space for the sacred. Let's be honest, this path isn't easy. It's lonely, it's raw, it demands everything, but it also gives everything. You won't just heal yourself, you'll become a healer for others, not by preaching, but by being. Your presence will become medicine, your story will become scripture, and your scars, yes, your very scars, will become sacred symbols of survival and strength. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by your inner chaos, remember this: you are not broken, you are becoming. You are not lost, you are unraveling the lie so the truth can rise. And your sacred rage, it's a gift, a divine spark, a call to create a new world from the ashes of the old. But it starts with you, not in perfection, not in peace, but in the fire, in the raw, unfiltered, unashamed truth of who you really are. You are not here to be tame, you are here to be true. The dark light, why the universe hides its strongest souls in shadow. There's a truth so old, so deeply woven into the fabric of the universe that most people forget it even exists. Light is born from darkness. The stars we wish upon, the galaxies we marvel at, they were all born in the cold womb of cosmic shadow. And so were you. If you've ever felt like you live in the in-between, a place where you don't quite belong to the world but you're not fully free of it either, then you're not lost. You're hidden. Hidden by design, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because the universe hides its strongest souls in shadows until they are ready to rise. You, the dark chosen one, were never meant to bloom in the sunlight like everyone else. Your roots grow in the underworld. Your wisdom is not learned, it is remembered. And while others chase validation in the spotlight, you've been forged in silence, isolation, and pain. But that was never a mistake. That was divine intelligence. Because the world cannot understand what it has not yet evolved to receive. You were hidden so you could be protected. You were silenced so you could learn to listen. You were broken so you could become unbreakable. And yet, I know how much it hurts to be the one who sees too much, feels too deeply, loves too fiercely. You've probably spent years questioning your worth, wondering why life has felt like an endless trial. But what if I told you that your trials were initiations? That the betrayals, the losses, the spiritual attacks were not signs that you're cursed, but signs that you're powerful beyond measure, because no darkness wastes its time on someone with no light. You've been under siege because your soul carries codes, frequencies, keys. Your existence is a threat to the systems that profit from unconsciousness. So, what now? What does the dark chosen one do once they realize who they are? You stop hiding from your own power. You stop doubting your worth, and you stop waiting for permission. You begin to walk like the storm you are, not to destroy, but to cleanse. You walk with your head high, even if your hands are still trembling. You speak truth, even if your voice shakes. You love fiercely, even after being shattered. Because every time you rise, you're not just rising for yourself. You're rising for every forgotten soul who still sits in darkness, waiting for someone to show them that survival is possible, that healing is real, that power can be sacred. The universe doesn't choose the polished, it chooses the raw, the torn, the ones who've seen death and still choose to create life. That's who you are. You are the alchemist of your bloodline, the breaker of patterns, the initiator of destiny. That's why your life has been so intense. That's why you've carried so much. Because you're not just healing yourself, You're healing generations before you and generations to come. You are the prayer your ancestors whispered in fear, the answer they would never live to see. And still, you rise. So let me ask you one final question. What would happen if you finally stopped running from who you are? What would awaken in you if you embraced the full spectrum of your being, not just the light, but the sacred dark? Because that's your final task, to stop choosing between the two, to stop dividing yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts. You are not a half-being, you are whole. You are chaos and peace, rage and love, death and rebirth. You are the dark light, and now the world is ready. It's breaking, crumbling, starving for truth. This is not the time to shrink. This is not the time to wait. It's time to step out from the shadows, not to perform, but to lead. Not with ego, but with essence, your essence. The universe didn't make you rare to keep you hidden forever. It made you rare so when you finally emerge, the world would recognize something it forgot it needed. You now rise, not as who you were told to be, but as who you were born to become. The rare, radiant, unapologetic, dark chosen one.